busy week in the National Football League, which means a busy week for the Bird. That's why we're here. Birds 365 with the Mac guys, McMullen and McDonald. Yesterday, we had the excitement of Hassan coming back to the Philadelphia Eagles, a deal that I was quite excited about. And it seems like most of Eagle Nation, we've had 24 hours to get the feel from Eagle fans, J-Mac, on our stream, on outlets like WIP and 97.5 The Fanatic. Looks like Eagle Nation pretty excited about bringing a former Philly college kid back into the fold to get after the quarterback this year. Yesterday, just kind of housekeeping stuff. Nothing moving.
Busy work. Busy work.
That's another way to describe it. I like the busy work that the Eagles were up to yesterday. And we had speculated on some of it ahead of time. Some of it came to fruition. Not nearly as excited about what the Eagles had to do. And I understand it's not the magnitude of giving a free agent pass rusher $45 million. And you got to do what you got to do because you have to manage the entire roster. Yeah, I'm okay. Maybe it's the Greg Ward thing. You know how big a fan I am of Greg Ward, and he's coming back because last year had been such a letdown. That's what I'll call it. I didn't necessarily think and or want Greg Ward back on this team because what kind of a roadmap can you draw where Greg Ward is a bigger contributor for the Eagles next year than he was this past year under the Nick Sirianni regime?
Probably none, barring massive injuries. But, he's a good guy. He's a great guy. He's a great teammate. He's smart. He's helpful. Until we keep talking about adding a veteran body to that room, he's the veteran body. I mean, even though he played quarterback at college, it's hard for people to imagine. He's not that old, but I mean, he's the guy. He's the steadying presence in that room with a bunch of young guys. Doesn't hurt to bring him back. 1 year, probably getting about $2 million. And if you cut him, if you find a way to improve and you cut him at the end of the summer, it's no big deal. It doesn't affect you. We'll see when the contracts are actually filed today, because remember, free agency doesn't even start technically until 4:00 today. So It's going to be exciting to see where all the big players go, Jody. It's going to be exciting to know where they're gonna sign. But tongue firmly planted in cheek. Yeah. Greg Ward's a good guy. It's like, doesn't hurt to bring him back. You might as well bring him back. And he's not going to get a deal other places. So why not?
Why give us the best guess scenario? You said around $2 million. Not even sure it's going to be that. How much of that would be a signing bonus that he's showing good faith to the Eagles because they gave him the chance to become a wide receiver in the league? He signs off on a basically minimum type contract. As you said, in the NFL, it's a one-way street where teams can just say, oh, yeah, we agreed to that contract. Never mind. And they go ahead and cut you with no ramification. Whereas in other sports, guaranteed contracts keep teams from doing that. What do you think a guy like Greg Ward gets as far as a signing bonus? So at least he gets something going out the door if he gets cut in the preseason.
It's interesting now that you bring that up. I got to look what the minimum salary is going to be for a veteran. I'll do that in the break in this year. So he could be down at that. He could be, given a little bit more. Like I said, you might give him couple $100,000 to sign. Depends, if you really believe he's going to be potential on the back end of your roster, or you're bringing him back for the reason I said, just because he's a good influence on your young receiver room. In theory, they don't have to give him any signing bonus. He probably doesn't have options. I would think because of what he's done for the organization, they're going to throw a couple shekels at him and to get him back. And it's not meaningful on the salary cap standpoint. And it will be set up. I'm very confident to say it will be set up when it's filed, that if he is released at the end of the summer or during the summer, it's not going to affect the Eagles at all, basically, from a salary cap standpoint. So that's when I say, whether you want to call it housekeeping work, busy work, whatever. I'm a little surprised he's back because they were so gung ho that they wanted to improve at the position as a whole. They couldn't get Calvin Ridley. The names are falling off the board as we speak, not only at receiver, but also safety. Howie Roseman talked in Indy, and one of the things he said, pre-agency is about checking boxes, so you don't have to press during the draft, and and he said if things work out, well, we're 2 days in, still a long way to go. I think people need to realize that. And they're going to check these boxes. They're going to bring in a receiver. I don't know who. They're going to bring in a safety. I don't know who. But they're not going to force themselves to reach in the draft. And Greg will be in the mix because he's and he might surprise people.
I hope so.
Because he's a hard worker. This stuff goes a long way. We're talking about Nick Sirianni bringing in Zach Pascal, for instance. You constantly hear that, Zach Pascal. Why do you constantly hear that? Because he does everything the right way. The coach loves him. The coach, wants to default to him. And not everybody's like that. And, he might surprise people. He's one of those players who's like that.
It's funny that you say that because that was going to be my next question. Does a returning Greg Ward make it less likely that Zach Pascal's going to be here? Because if one of Greg Ward's strengths is he's a good guy in the room, he keeps up the spirits of the young guy. He's not afraid to help them out and give them pointers if necessary. That if you've got a guy like Greg Ward, that Zach Pascal isn't as necessary. Because let's be honest, neither one of them is going to go out and grab 60 balls and have 800 yards of receptions and 5 touchdowns. Neither one of those players are those type of players. The Eagles are still looking for that guy, whether he's a hard worker or not, whether he's a good influence in the wide receiver room or not. They need production. And I think it's always smart to be on the lookout for that type of a player because it does balance off your room. Yeah, I'm worried about production. I'll leave it to Nick Sirianni and his coaching staff to get these guys coached and up and ready. Give me a guy who actually go out and make plays over a guy who's a good guy in the room. That's not as big a deal to me. Now, I'm not there. You seem to be of the belief that the Eagles lean on that heavily. I'm leaning on a guy who can go out and actually put up some numbers next year at the wide receiver position. To this point, the Eagles have gotten no one like that in free agency.
Yeah, well, and look, neither of those players are in that conversation. So I get where you're going. The Eagles have already, identified, have already flashed, have already shown that they understand they need more production by trying to make the trade for Calvin Ridley. I mean, they clearly, the old saying is, don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. They clearly understand they need an upgrade at wide receiver by trying to go out and get a 1,300-yard receiver until obviously things went awry for him. And we all know about the suspension. So they're clearly aware that they need to add some big time, I would say, impact at the receiver position. And that's not going to be Greg Ward or Zach Pascal, as Greg Ward's contract, indicates. And, this is not somebody they're counting on to give them production. So, but the one thing where I say all the good things about Greg Ward, the one box, we talk about checking boxes, the one box he doesn't check from the perspective of all the talk I was talking, he's not a receiver. He's not a technician. He learned the position himself at the pro level after playing, quarterback, where he's a pretty darn good quarterback at Houston at the college level. He's not a receiver. So you don't have that technician. He can show players, he can show younger players how to be a professional, how to work, how to go about their job. But when it comes to the route running, like when it comes to the Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, Amari Cooper route running, the technique, the footwork, the positioning, he can't help with that. He's in the same boat as those guys for a lot of it, and he's behind Devontae Smith, certainly, who's more of a natural route runner. So what you really want is a veteran presence who encompasses everything, all the good of Greg Ward as far as being a leader and a work ethic guy, but who's also a technician who can impart, how important the little things. We talked a little bit about that play in New York again against the Giants, where everybody's running the wrong route. They're at the wrong depth. They're at the wrong steps. You need somebody who can impart that to the young receivers. And that's where I think Greg Ward doesn't work in that situation. Maybe Zach Pascal does. Maybe.
I was a little surprised they even brought the Ward back. As big a fan I am, it just didn't seem to make sense to me. And, oh, by the way, I'm not giving Howie Roseman a participation trophy because he was reportedly involved in bidding to potentially get the wide receiver Calvin Ridley.
No, I'm saying it's an indication they understand the situation. That's all I'm saying. I'm not giving him a ribbon. I'm saying it's a clear, like I said, don't watch what they say. I watch what they do. So that.
But here's the thing: they did nothing. They may have had a conversation. They may have even made a formal offer for him. They didn't acquire him, so it's acknowledge what they did. They did zippity doodah. They didn't get the guy yet.
But the sentiment is there that why are they chasing the guy? Why is there a deal in place, was essentially what Jay said. Why is there a deal in place for that particular player? That's what I'm talking about. They didn't get it done. And to a certain degree, it's not, they had no idea the suspension was coming down. But remember, there's some issues with Calvin Ridley coming off last year as well. And the fact that he missed, 12 games or whatever it was. So, with the mental health issues, the anxiety, stemming from a breakup. But all I'm trying to say is you're saying they need production. All I'm trying to say is they're aware they need production from the wide receiver. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to they haven't done it. They haven't improved at safety.
Right.
Tyrann Mathieu's out there. Nobody else, who's going to be that big splash because everybody has come off the safety board. Jordan Whitehead, the Jets, your team got a great deal with him. I don't know what's going on. That's a great signing for me. For a young player's got some upside. And then in turn, Marcus May got 3 years, I think, from the Saints, which is a little bit of a surprise because he's coming off the torn Achilles. Maybe the market's a little bit higher than they thought. I think Jimmy Kempski was the first one to say they were in on Marcus Williams, but I don't think that. I mean, of course they were in on Marcus Williams, but, I heard it was the Ravens and the Jets. So they were never going that high. It's nice to be disciplined. It's kind of a catch-22. I see both sides of the fence. We've had this conversation. I don't want Marcus Williams for that money, for all the things in Baltimore, New York, Philadelphia. I don't think he's that good of a player to be paid like one of the best safeties in the NFL. I think people are going to expect him to be that, and it's going to be one of those free agent. He's going to be there for 2 years, and they're going to have to rework his deal or he's out of there because he can't reach that level of expectation. So I like the discipline part at times, but, you also got to figure out a way to get maybe a good contract with Jordan Whitehead or something of that nature.
Yeah, I'm a bigger Marcus Williams fan than you are. I think he will be worth that kind of money. Slightly higher than I thought he was going to get, but not significantly higher. Sounds like you thought he got fits into those Christian Kirk blatantly overpaid type deal, and I don't think that was the case. I think it was a good signing by the Ravens, and I think the Jets were involved. But I'll take Kempski at his word. He's a damn good reporter if they were competitive. Now that leaves you wiggle room as to what is competitive. If they were only offering him 3 years and $12 million as compared to 5 years and $15 million, someone can look at that and go, oh, that's a competitive offer. And others can look at it and go, Yeah, that's not competitive. You're not really all that close. So competitive is in the eye of the beholder. But here's the bottom line. To this point, 2 days in, and I know it's only 2 days in, but there's a lot of a lot of activity for the first 2 days. Wide receiver position that the Eagles well acknowledged they needed to upgrade and get better and add veterans. They've added none. Safety, both of their starting safeties out on the market, free agents. They got to lock in somebody there as far as a veteran goes. They've got none. People ready to run my guy, Steven Nelson, out of town. We got an upgraded cornerback. And yes, we all believe cornerback will be a position that they will address in the draft, but they want to get some veteran upgrades. They've got none. Other than the pass rusher with Hassan Reddick, they really haven't added anything to this team at this point. Should Eagle fans be nervous? That's something we'll kick around over the course of the next hour and change. We've got 2 good guests coming your way a little bit later on. Our own D-Gun is going to join us. Derek Gunn will hop aboard. We'll talk all things Eagle with him. But coming up next, our buddy from down in the first state. That's what Delaware is, right? Nutmeg is Connecticut. Yeah. Delaware
Martin's kind of a – is Martin on? Yeah, Martin's waiting. Martin's kind of a broad Delawarean. Can I say that? Now he's living in Pennsylvania. You can say
anything you want, but then you're going to get called
He's going to get upset.
He's going to get upset.
Now everybody does. But Martin covers Delaware better than anybody else. So that's the key part. That's the key part.
How can you call him fraud when he got a Delaware question in with you guys on the beat last year?
Oh, my God. Are you kidding? He always gets that. He's not a fraud from that standpoint. Not at all. In fact, he's going to be. You're going to get an exciting last question to Martin Frank, so I'll leave that. I'll leave that hanging.
Fair enough. All right, John McMullen, Jody McDonald, Mac and Mac Birds 365, Delaware, the Delawarean Martin Frank joins us next here on Birds 365.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that. Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you. Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3. Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Here, football fans, yes. NFL's two-year thing become official at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Players and the teams go to paper on agreements that have already been rendered. Eagles had a big move day 1, a couple housekeeping moves day 2. What are we going to get on day 3? Let's find out from a guy who knows the team inside out. No fraud Delawarean to me.
That's a harsh word. I apologize. I should have went. I should have went faux. That's what I was looking for, but I panicked. That's too harsh of a word. No, Martin just lives in Pennsylvania now, which is not. It's easier. Hey, got to get to the complex. Got to get to the Wells Fargo Center. It's a little bit easier. By the way, Derek Gunn lives in Delaware. We got
sure does.
Yeah. So there you go.
Delaware all over the place today. Yeah. From your front door, time you put the key in the car, turn it over, drive as quickly as the law will allow. How long does it take you to get to Delaware from your house?
About 45 minutes.
Ooh, then you are a faux Delaware guy.
Delaware's like 45 minutes from anywhere.
Yeah, that's true. That's true too. It's like South Jersey. You can't, anywhere I'm going, it takes 25 minutes. So I might as well be in Delaware.
Well, see, when I grew up, that was Long Island. Then you can get anywhere in Long Island in 25 minutes. Baloney. Yeah. You want to go out to Montauk and take you 2.5 hours on a Friday during the weekend. What the hell are you talking about?
It's easier to get to Ohio than Long Island.
An hour and go like maybe a mile.
Yeah, it's far easier. You can go across the country before you can get to Long Island. Yeah. All right, enough travel talk. I apologize, Martin. So let's get it back on track. Martin Frank, DelawareOnline.com. So your latest piece, we're only 48 hours into this, and obviously today's the only first official day. Sure. Wink, wink. So, I mean, there's plenty of moves to be made, but, the Eagles haven't come out of the tampering period, so to speak, with a safety. I think we all thought that would be a significant target. Wide receiver as well. They tried to trade for Calvin Ridley. We know that now. They did get an edge rusher. Maybe when they spend money, they tend to spend it on the offensive and defensive line. So maybe we all missed the obvious, but your broader ranging question, does Howie Roseman have a plan? What do you think? Does he have a plan here, Martin? Is he just losing out on players?
Well, I mean, he probably does. I don't think they wanted to spend top dollar for a guy like Marcus Williams, for example, at safety, or
we love
at wide receiver. I mean, they obviously.
Oh no, that was your. I thought your dog was creeping up over your shoulder.
Yeah, she was kind of hiding.
Now I'm really getting in trouble. See, that's bad eyesight. That's bad eyesight. I apologize again. Go ahead, Martin.
So yeah, they weren't going to spend like top dollar for guys. When teams like Jacksonville and the Jets and even the Colts have like all this money free agency. I mean, they're just throwing around money like it's paper basically. And the Eagles weren't going to be able to compete with teams like that. You look at Christian Kirk getting an average annual value of about $18 million a year. Yeah. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, the guy's never had a 1,000-yard receiving season. And that kind of like drives up the price for everybody else. I mean, you still have a couple guys out there in Allen Robinson and Juju Smith-Schuster, but those guys are probably going to get a decent amount too. And I don't know if the Eagles will be in on those guys too, unless, they wait it out and their value drops and maybe they take a 1-year deal. But, doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. I mean, they're probably going to get like these lower tier guys, a veteran wide receiver, someone like maybe Zach Pascal from the Colts, who, Nick Sirianni's pretty familiar with. And, he's a good slot receiver. He's a veteran. He knows the offense and everything like that. So, and then go in the draft. I mean, they get the 3 first-round picks. There's a good crop of wide receivers. They can get a safety in the, maybe second round, first round, something like that. I mean, they can address some of those needs that they didn't necessarily address in free agency.
Let me ask you about Juju, because he's an interesting take. A lot of people thought he'd be a good fit for the Eagles. The Eagles inquired on him last year. kind of like Hassan Reddick, who I wanted to see the Eagles get last year. They didn't. They got him a year later, and I'm still ecstatic about it, but I would have taken him last year. Same thing with Juju Smith-Schuster. And Eagles inquired last year. He decided to go back to Pittsburgh. No more Ben Roethlisberger. Maybe Pittsburgh is less attractive to him, and he's more willing to spread his wings and fly, maybe to Philadelphia. But there are mixed reports that maybe the Eagles' interest in him isn't what it was reported to be, that this isn't a priority for them, or at least he isn't a priority for them. He seems to make a lot of sense. One of John and my favorite phrases, checks boxes. Oh, he does a lot of that for a fit with the Philadelphia Eagles. Why do you think, if it has, and these are all just reports, Howie Roseman hasn't come out and said, yeah, we're not as up on Juju Smith-Schuster as we used to be. If the reports are accurate, why do you think the Eagles were cooled on Juju?
I'm not sure they have cooled. I mean, this could be all gamesmanship on Howie's part, or someone from the Eagles, like, yeah, we don't think that much about him. We're not really interested. I mean, if he comes out and says, if they come out and say, yeah, he's somebody we're targeting, we really want, I mean, that drives up the price. Maybe somebody else says, hey, we're going to get him. Then, I think it's all, I mean, this time of year, agents and GMs and people like that, I mean, they've got their own agendas and stuff. And this could be something like, Howie's saying, yeah, we're going to cool on them. Maybe there won't be as much interest, and then kind of swoop in later on and, try to get them. So I wouldn't be, I mean, he would seem to be ideal for what the Eagles need. I mean, he's a tremendous slot receiver, very dependable, catches the ball. He had I think 111 catches a couple years ago, had 97, I want to say 2 years ago. I mean, he was hurt last year. I mean, he only played in the 5 games. So, obviously that's why he's not getting top dollar right now. But I mean, he's a guy who can definitely help the Eagles. I mean, that's definitely something they need. A dependable, really good slot receiver who can open things up for Devontae, Quez Watkins, and guys like that.
Martin, kind of shifting sides of the ball, the other obvious position is safety. And the safeties have come off. You mentioned Marcus Williams at the top of the list, but, the dominoes have fallen from there. Jordan Whitehead, Jody's Jets, get him on a great deal. I thought that would have been a perfect Eagles deal for a younger player. For whatever, Marcus May's got a history with Denard Wilson, signs with the Saints. There's one guy out there, though, and it's not a typical Eagles signing because Tyrann Mathieu's a little bit older, a lot of tread on the tire, but he can still play. You're talking about an all-pro level safety. And last year, Jonathan Gannon would talk a lot about Harrison Smith. Harrison Smith this, Harrison Smith that. And he seems to want this movable piece who can move all over the field, sort of like Malcolm Jenkins did when he was here. Mathieu's that guy. Marcus Williams is a safety. He's going to play back. He's going to be covered. He's a safety. Are they preparing to make a splash, to bring in a big name player like that who's a little bit older, that doesn't fit sort of the normal Eagles thinking?
It's possible. I mean, you also have to weigh how many years do you want to give him, because if we're talking about Tyrann Mathieu.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be 30 years old.
30, yeah. He's played 9 years, I think. A lot of tread on the tire. But
right, so you have to kind of figure out what's a good contract for a guy like that. I mean, is some team going to say, oh, we'll give him 3 or 4 years anyway, we don't care, we want him that badly? I mean, that's not going to be the Eagles. But are they going to give him a 2-year deal? Are they going to give him a 1-year deal? I guess what the Eagles have to figure out is, for a guy who's 30 years old, can he still play, 2-3 years down the road? Is he still going to be really good at 32, 33 years old? And I don't know if there's a history of safeties playing well into their 30s. I mean, you look at guys like Malcolm Jenkins and obviously a guy who the Eagles fans are very familiar with, and Brian Dawkins. I mean, the Eagles regretted letting Brian Dawkins go at the age of 30, and he played another 2-3 years. And, Malcolm Jenkins is still going strong. I think he's like 32 or 33. But at the same time, as they got older, they played more closer to the box. They were more like a hybrid type of linebacker. And how many years out of Tyrann Mathieu are you going to get where he's the top safety? I mean, it's only going to be 1 more year. Is it going to be 2 more years? And then you have to figure out what's an offer that works there for the money and, makes him kind of still effective. It's a balancing act. And I think, there's going to be a team that's probably going to overpay and say, we don't care. We're going to give him 3 years and top dollar and everything like that. And I don't think that team will be the Eagles, but it's possible there could be a team that does that.
Martin, all right, so the Eagles haven't quite moved the needle yet at safety, a positional need that they haven't been able to come up with a deal, not panic, but a raised eyebrow. Well, at least they took care of the needed cornerback. They went out and got a corner. Oh, no, they haven't done that yet either. They needed to get some veteran upgrades, if not significant upgrades at all the defensive back positions that aren't being held by Darius Slay as of right now. No corner maneuvering either. Again, slight concern. Hey, Jody, it's day 3. How do you look at the fact that they haven't gotten either a safety or a corner to this point?
Yeah, I mean, it's concerning. But remember, they do have 3 guys, their own free agents. They have Steve Nelson, who did a good job last year. They have Anthony Harris. They have Rodney McLeod. All those guys are free agents, and they could all leave, but those guys haven't left yet. I mean, obviously, they could bring back one of those guys. Like, if you bring back Steven Nelson on a 1-year deal, or actually it'd probably take more than a 1-year deal considering how he played last year, but you bring Steven Nelson back, all of a sudden your cornerback situation is pretty much solved. You can add somebody in the draft. You can work in some of the younger guys. They did trade for 2 guys last fall who were rookies last year that they're pretty high on. Maybe those guys get a chance to back up. So you get Steven Nelson back, you're in pretty good shape. Or if you let Steven Nelson go and you bring back either Harris or McLeod, then all of a sudden safety isn't as big a concern. Because I think they were going to start Marcus Epps anyway. I mean, he was rotating in last year with those 2 guys anyway. So, you figure Epps is going to be a starter. You bring back one of those 2 guys, you got your starters for next year. You also have Kayvon Wallace. You can also draft a guy. So you'd have pretty good depth if you did that. And I think of those 3, I think one of them probably will come back. And that'll address one of the needs, and then you just have to figure out a way to address the other.
All right, let's say we'll go safety first. Let's say they bring back Rodney McLeod on a 1-year deal again, and team him with Epsy as the safeties. Are you good with that? Is that good enough at safety in the modern NFL?
I think it's good enough for what the Eagles are doing. I think they still need to add something. I think they still need to get, draft someone, or if they're really high on Kayvon Wallace, I think they need to work a 3rd guy in there. They definitely need a little bit more depth, but I think starting Rodney McLeod, he was pretty good last year coming off the torn ACL. It took him a little while, but to get back into it and everything like that. But I think he can, a year removed and stuff, I think he can still give you one more pretty solid year. You would need a 3rd guy, obviously, to work in with them. And I think that's possible. You can still add that in the draft. And I think it's not going to be like a strength per se, but I think they'd be good enough to be competitive back there. So yeah, I think that could possibly work if it's McLeod or if it's Anthony Harris, one of those 2 guys.
All right, Martin, even though this is a bit of a layup question, it's a significant question just the same. Which doesn't belong and why? New Orleans Saints, Cleveland Browns, Carolina Panthers, Philadelphia Eagles. Which doesn't belong and why?
Whew. Yeah, I don't see it happening with the Eagles. If you're talking about Deshaun Watson, the
I
team.
am not talking about Deshaun Watson. I'm talking about the fact that one team out of that group of four made the playoffs last year, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles. The other three did not. Yet the other three, like a meeting with the Pope, have gotten a chance to meet with Deshaun Watson, and the Philadelphia Eagles have not. Why is that the case, Martin Frank?
Well, because he obviously doesn't want to come here. I mean, and maybe the Eagles don't want him to come here.
Joe Banner still thinks he's coming here. But, it is interesting. Forget about, what the Eagles want, what Deshaun Watson wants. It's like Oprah Winfrey. Everybody's getting a meeting. Jody said it's the Pope. It's the exact opposite. I think the Calgary Stampeders are getting a meeting today. So
not the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yes.
Everybody's getting a meeting but the Philadelphia Eagles. Somebody explain that to me.
Yeah. So that's the point, Martin. Why is all of a sudden Deshaun Watson has opened up his eyes and said, all right, I'll consider other teams. And we know the Eagles' history. And we know they do their due diligence on everybody. They already did their due diligence on Deshaun Watson to a certain extent. So why does it stop now and that the Eagles aren't pressing for this meeting? Does it say something about their perceived love of Jalen Hurts? Because this goes against every Eagles ethos about needing the superstar quarterback. This guy's never available. And obviously he's available for horrible reasons. And, their 26-year-old superstar quarterbacks don't come on the market. The Eagles, 99.99% of the time, are going to be in that mix. Why are they not pushing harder? Is it just a PR thing to try to straddle the fence with Jalen Hurts to not create what Cleveland did with Baker Mayfield yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Eagles did their due diligence a year ago. We don't know what their due diligence was. Like, we don't know that. Do they come away and say, no, we're not going to go anywhere near this guy. We're not going to take the PR hit. We're not going to, I mean, who knows what comes of the civil suits? Who knows? Maybe they found something that, like, no, we can't go anywhere near this guy. It's an interesting dilemma because, like you said, he's got all the traits that you would want. A 26-year-old guy, probably top 5, top 6 or 7 NFL quarterback, a guy who can make a difference for you. But at the same time, there's a lot of baggage. And also you have to look at it from this point of view. If they go out and they trade for Deshaun Watson, his salary cap figure is going to keep the Eagles from doing anything else. I mean, I don't know, like if they get him, they would have to make some, release some players and everything to get back under the cap, right? Because they just signed.
Yeah, they'd have to do some maneuvering.
Reddick. I mean, they'd have to do something. I mean, I don't think they could just automatically fit him into their cap right now because they already signed Reddick. So that changes things a little bit. And how you said all off season. I mean, as soon as the season ended again at the combine a couple weeks ago, that, their goal is to build around Jalen Hurts. They need to add some pieces. They need to get better players and stuff around him. And they think, if it works out in 2022 and Hurts has a good year, then, they're pretty much set. I mean, Hurts is on his rookie contract. He's only counting like $1.6 million against the cap. I mean, that's a huge difference from.
Well, then I would say to Howie Martin, go add something then. Go ahead, go get a receiver. Go build around Jalen Hurts.
And he'd say, yeah, I got Hassan Reddick. I mean, I got a pass rusher and everything.
Yeah.
I mean,
which does help.
That doesn't help Jalen Hurts, but
let me take it in this direction. If we're all surprised, then word comes out later today that the Eagles too are going to get some key individuals. They're going to get on a plane and immediately get down to Houston and have a meeting with Deshaun Watson. If that does transpire, does Jalen Hurts take to social media and thank the Philadelphia fans for his year and a half that he's had here in Philadelphia.
He's going to take Eagles off his Twitter profile that he never had on his Twitter profile.
So you think he'd go more along the lines of Kyler Murray than Baker Mayfield, who goes to social media to profess his love to Cleveland? Oh, I loved you, Cleveland, but looks like we're parting ways. Do you think that the current Eagle quarterback would go that way?
I think it's pretty safe to say that we know Jalen Hurts at all. He's not going to do anything like that. I mean, he goes out there and he competes, and he'll probably look at it like if they end up getting Deshaun Watson and he's still on the team. I mean, I would assume he would go in that trade, but let's say for some reason he doesn't. I mean, he'd probably look at it like, hey, I'm going to compete for the starting quarterback job, and if Deshaun Watson wins it, congratulations to him. I mean, he's not going to rock the boat and say, oh, thank you, Philadelphia. I've had a great year and a half. And, but I'm not, I think Jalen Hurts is the kind of guy, humble enough and everything like that. He's not going to rock the boat or anything like that. And I think that's why his teammates love him. I mean, to a man, they rave about him as a leader. I mean, even Jason Kelsey, I mean, I would think if he didn't like Jalen Hurts, he would have retired. I mean, he would have drank in his keg of beer and set off into the sunset, but I think he's, and a lot of guys feel that way about him. I mean, he's a really good leader. He's someone who's only 23 years old and can get better. I mean, that's the thing. You look at Carson Wentz, for example, everyone said, oh yeah, he had a pretty good year. He completed 62% of his passes and all that, which is fine. But I mean, that's as good as Carson Wentz is going to get. I mean, we know that now. He's been in the league 5 or 6 years. We've seen bad Carson Wentz, and good Carson Wentz is as good as probably he's going to be as he was last year and everything. So, Jalen Hurts, he hasn't really hit his ceiling yet, and he can get better. And if he doesn't, then the Eagles can move on in 2023. It's not a situation where they desperately need a quarterback right now. They kind of have one that they like, and if he gets better, great, and if he doesn't, then they'll find someone.
All right, I want to forget about the names for a second, Martin. I want you to put on your Howie Roseman hat or your Jeffrey Lurie hat or both and morph into both. Do you, as you mentioned, they've been very public. A lot of votes of confidence for Jalen Hurts as the future of this team. A lot of people you mentioned, very cost effective in the short term, $1.6 million for this year. You see the numbers around the NFL exploding as a whole, but specifically at the quarterback position. I've asked this question of a lot of people. Jody's heard it a number of times. By this time next year, if Jalen Hurts plays the same he does or gets a little bit better, he's going to be in line to get paid $30 million minimum on an extension. Do you think this team would be willing to go to that level, which is medium pay for a quarterback, especially next year with the cap spiking further because the new TV deals will kick in? That's going to be the cost of doing business for a middle of the road quarterback in the NFL. No more $1.6 million. What are we doing here? That's why I say, isn't there a sense of urgency maybe bigger than people realize at that particular position, especially, Martin, because you have the 3 first-round picks, which is not a common occurrence?
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what puts this season kind of in a sense of urgency right now to add the pieces that you still can while he's on his rookie contract, and then make the decision. I mean, if you're going to say right now, oh, I got to get Deshaun Watson and everything, and I think his cap hit is 35 to 40 million over the next few years,
which will be cheap, by the way, next year. But you'll have to redo it. Yeah, you'll have to redo it.
You kick the can down the proverbial road, as happens often. I mean, that's the thing. They have this space now to do other things. I mean, they're not committed to the quarterback. I mean, that was kind of the same situation when Carson Wentz was on his rookie contract. You look at his second year in 2017, I mean, they added Alshon Jeffrey, they added LeGarrette Blount. The year before, they added Rodney McLeod and Brandon Brooks. They made some moves. I mean, they added guys who were integral parts of the Super Bowl team. And then that second year, Wentz improved enough to the point where he was playing at an MVP type of level. Now, I'm not saying Jalen Hurts is going to play at an MVP type of level, but, maybe he improves his completion percentage from 61 to 65. He runs for 1,000 yards. Miles Sanders stays healthy. He runs for 1,000 yards. Devontae Smith takes off. He gets over 1,000 yards receiving. Dallas Goedert's a top tight end. Nick Sirianni raves about Quez Watkins as a number 2 receiver. They add a veteran, maybe like Zach Pascal in the slot, and he has a good year. I mean, all of a sudden, you've got a really good offensive team. I mean, we know the offensive line is going to be one of the best in the NFL. So, I mean, it's all possible that, they use this year to add some pieces to kind of build the team around Hurts, and that makes him better. And then, you make the decision. I think he's still 2023, he's still on his rookie contract as well. So you technically have even another year before you have to pay him. And then, you obviously have enough ammunition at that point to make that kind of decision. I mean, if he bombs and the Eagles stink this year, well, then your answer. You need a quarterback.
Yeah, Martin, let me hold you down a little bit, you and John both, but you first. If there are 3 potential outcomes of Jalen Hurts' upcoming season, and the 3 are, yes, he stays right where he is, which, as John noted, if you got to quantify it, they had him, Pro Football Focus had him the 17th rated quarterback in the NFL out of 32 teams. So he's right at the top of the second half of the NFL. If he stays exactly right there, or he falls off, he goes backwards, he's the 22nd ranked quarterback and he actually produces less, and you could judge him to be a lesser quarterback than he was this year, or he steps up and he jumps into the top half. All right, not top 10, but he's 13 or 14 rather than 17. If he's going to fall into one of those 3 categories, break them down percentage for me. 100%. Give me the percentage chance he falls into each category. Goes backwards, gets worse, stays exactly the same, actually improves, and nobody's going to bat an eye when you got to give him $30 million on an extension. Give me the percentages of those 3 categories.
Okay. I think 60% he improves. And when I say improves, I'm not like you said, I'm not talking about a top 10 quarterback. I'm talking like the 10 to 15 range, definitely like top half. I say that's 60%. I'd say about 30% that he stays the same, and I'd say about 10% that he gets worse. I mean, the one thing we know about Jalen Hurts is he's going to work his butt off. I mean, there's no dog in him at all. He's not going to say, I want more control of the offense. I'm going to change the plays of the line of scrimmage like, somebody else we all know well. So I don't think any of that is going to be an issue with Jalen Hurts. I mean, people love him because of his work ethic. He'll stay after practice. He'll throw with Devontae Smith. He'll throw with Greg Ward. He'll throw with anybody. He'll throw with me if I want to catch some more passes and stuff. That's the kind of guy he is, and I think they like him for that. And I think that's why they're so high on the possibility that he's going to be, a top half quarterback this coming season. And, and if all that plays out, then yeah, I mean, you got to give him that $30 million contract because that's the going rate. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo makes, 27 million, I think. And, people are like, nobody knows if he's coming back to San Francisco or not. I mean, chances are he's not because they have Trey Lance and stuff, but I mean, would you rather have Jalen Hurts or would you rather have Jimmy Garoppolo? I mean, despite Garoppolo's 1-loss record and everything like that, I mean, as a quarterback to grow with, I mean, I think you'd much rather have a guy like Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. Jimmy's a tough one because he wins games, but yeah, I'd rather have Jalen Hurts. I'm with you. Martin Frank, follow him on Twitter. at mprank NFL, DelawareOnline.com. You can read them there. Get to the important stuff here. Bones Highland buried the Sixers the other night, Delaware native. And then, there's something big happening with the Lady Blue Hens this weekend. Bigger thing in Delaware. Bones Highlands or the Lady, are they still the Lady Blue Hens? Do we still do that?
No,
or
no,
is that
just the
sort of,
Blue Hens.
yeah. Is that I'm dating myself. I'm aging myself. Bigger thing in the state of Delaware.
Well, I mean, and then you got the big border war between the Delaware men and Villanova too on Friday in Pittsburgh. So Friday afternoon, you got the Delaware men playing Villanova in Pittsburgh, and then right after that, basically like at 5:00, the women are playing Maryland in the first round of the women's NCAA tournament. I mean, huge stories. I mean, what if they both come out with upset wins and everything like that?
Blue Hens going to the Final Four.
See, I told he was a true Delawarean. He was hyperbole on it.
A source told me that the Blue Hens have a chance to go to the Final Four. A source told me that.
Yeah, maybe not. But and then you mentioned Bones Highland. I mean, he pretty much beat the
player, man.
4 3-pointers in the fourth quarter. Everyone's talking about Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic, the big MVP matchup, and Bones stole the show. He had like 600, 700 people there. The firefighters who saved his life were there. It was pretty awesome.
Wow, he had that many people there? Wow. He had 600 people there?
Oh, yeah.
That's impressive. Yeah. Like kids he grew up with, teachers. I interviewed a couple of teachers who were there who taught him in elementary school, a coach from 6th and 7th grade. Family, there were a lot of people after the game just like cheering them on and stuff like that. It was a pretty cool experience.
You could actually hear it on the broadcast. I watch at home and I'm going, whoa. Was that a Sixer basket or was that a Nugget basket?
Wow.
The cheers were raining down for Bones. All right. One more from me, Martin. Somewhere Jimmy Kempski weeps, and I'll explain what I mean by that. We were chastised, or at least I was kind of needling Howie Roseman because he hasn't been able to finagle a Deshaun Watson meeting just yet. Maybe we should even be more harsh with the general manager of the Philadelphia Eagles because he got 0 compensatory picks this year. How can Howie, Mr. Draft himself, Mr. Assets himself, come away with no compensatory picks? And that's what I mean by Jimmy Kempski week, because nobody makes a bigger deal out of Eagles. And
I blame Jimmy for this, by the way.
Year long. Ooh, this could add to, this could subtract from. Well, here's what we got this year. A ±0. No compensatory picks for the Philadelphia Eagles. How much do we take Howie out to the woodshed for not being able to land himself a compensatory pick?
Well, the part about getting a compensatory pick is you have to lose a player who's good.
You got to lose players as well. People don't get this.
Like, are people like, you look at this year, like, are people like banging down the doors for Steven Nelson or, for, I don't know, Alex Singleton. Well, I guess Alex Singleton wouldn't count, but, somebody like that. I mean, people are going to bang down the door for Rodney McLeod. So, like, even if those guys leave, and the Eagles already signed Hassan Reddick, so they're already at a net gain, so they're probably not going to get one. That's the way it is. If you have money to spend, you can sign free agents.
You mean Derek Barnett's not going to sign for $14 million with some other team?
Well, he might actually. I mean, I wouldn't rule that out with the
I would.
going out.
No, I think 9 a year, but it's going to be significant. It's going to be
I mean, he's not going to take much of a pay cut from $10 million that he made last year. That's for sure. So, I mean, even if Barnett signs or whatever, I mean, you're still at a net gain because you got Hassan Reddick. So, I don't think they're going to be getting a compensatory pick next year either.
That's on Howie. That's all Howie.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be the generator of guys to come in here and then be better when they leave.
See,
so
I always joke
compensatory picks.
I always joke with Jimmy. I go, because nobody knows compensatory picks better than Jimmy, but he has created this maddening Like, people don't understand how it works, so they're immediately saying,
by the way, I don't think teams in the NFL understand how it works.
They know how it works. So when you're
more difficult algorithm than the one here on YouTube that we have to continue to try and
I'll
drive.
explain it to you really shortly after we Martin's probably like trying to get the hell out of here. Yeah, people, you probably get this too real quick, Martin. Do people immediately contact you if the Eagles lose a player like Derek Barnett? Do they say, will they get a comp pick for that? Do you get that?
But, I mean, you also, like, if you have money to spend and you're signing free agents, I mean, that's a good thing. You want that. I mean, you're not going to get a comp pick for that. Yeah. Like, the Jacksonville Jaguars don't get comp picks because they're always like signing guys. I mean, they have money to burn and everything like that. So, I mean, it's a good situation to have when you're, when you're up against the cap and you're trying to cut salary and, you get an extra draft pick and that helps you. But, if you have money to spend, and you want to spend it. So you're not going to get a comp pick.
Yeah.
More is made of it than needs to be. I was trying to poke a little fun in case no one was picking up on what I was attempting to do there. I never poke fun at Martin Frank. John McMullen does.
Yeah,
call him
I got a
Delaware. I would not do that to you, Martin.
That was
never,
harsh.
Never, buddy.
That was harsh.
We always appreciate when you come on. We'll get you back in a couple of weeks. Thanks, bud.
Thanks,
Martin.
Martin.
Always a pleasure. Take it easy.
Martin Frank may live in the state of Pennsylvania, but does his work for Delaware. And he is that good and that cool that he can qualify for 2 states. There aren't too many people out there that can do that.
I joke that Martin is number 2 in Delaware, and I always joke to Joe Biden. It goes Joe Biden and Martin Frank.
And you got to give Biden. He keeps going back. You thought maybe he would clip those Delaware roots when he became president. No, he's always going back to Delaware. So, you got to give Biden credit on staying connected to the first state well. But I think it's actually a debate as to whether Martin Frank or Joe Biden is the.
I take Martin first. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, so would I. Sorry
Unless
about that.
I can get a free Amtrak pass. I don't know if that's involved, but
yeah. 2 non-Delawareans, Jody McDonald and John McMullen. Although I love Delaware Park, maybe I'll go down this afternoon. It's just simulcasting, no live racing, so never mind. We've still got another hour live of Birds 365 coming your way with another Delawarean. Yes, our buddy D Gunn is going to jump aboard. Keep it here on Birds 365.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
You got your Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. Thank you very much for tuning in. And Johnny Mac, what do we want to tell the fine folks who are streaming right in right now to Birds 365?
You got to like, share, and subscribe to the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. So you have more of this good product, but making bad jokes, I feel bad now.
It may be the only algorithm that's more difficult than figuring out the compensatory.
Yeah. Can I do that real quick for the people out there?
You can go ahead and try.
Crazy. It's really pretty simple. First of all, there's only 32 compensatory picks. Now, and now the NFL's further clouded that because they've added compensatory picks.
I thought it was easy. What do you mean clouded?
Well, no, the formula for the play. I'm saying they've added compensatory picks for minority hirings of GMs and coaches. So there's typically for players, there's 32 of them. So that's the first thing you have to understand. So it cuts off, even if you have a player, you have to have a net loss in free agency. So in other words, if you sign 3, you got to lose 4. And it goes by contract level. So the higher paid guys, the first compensatory pick, the second compensatory, and then when you get down to 32, you might be in line for a compensatory pick, but the contract's a little bit lower, and then you're SOL, as they say. So the most important part, Jody, that fans need to understand, you need to have a net loss in free agency to even be in the mix to get a comp pick. In other words, like I said, so if Derek Barnett signs somewhere and gets a decent deal, don't ask, are they going to get a compensatory pick? We don't know. We aren't going to know until the end of free agency, and we know if they have a net gain or a net loss, and then potentially they could have a compensatory pick.
Now, when you say net gain or net loss, are we talking about number of players? Or are we talking about money spent on salaries?
Both. Number of players, most, and then it cuts sort of like you have ranges. If you got like the Eagles signed Hassan Reddick, if Derek Barnett's in a similar stratosphere, which he won't be that high, but if he gets to say 9-10 million, he'll be a little bit less. Those two might knock out each other, so to speak.
Right.
So,
well, how do you determine what is a comparable?
Well, that part's a little bit. That formula is the difficult.
That's
part.
What I was getting at. Nobody can figure
it.
out that formula.
I get. Look, I don't expect fans to get that formula. I expect fans to get the easy stuff. Easy stuff is when somebody signs, don't ask, are they getting a compensatory pick? Nobody knows at that point because you got to wait for the net loss. Then you can get into the difficult parts of it. Now, there's guys who project it. Jimmy's very good at it. There's somebody else that I think his name is Nick Quartz or Corte. Who's very good at it, and they keep in tune with the entire league, and they do it as it's going on, and they project it, and that's fine, but it's always fluid. Now, you were mentioning from Howie Roseman's standpoint, look, Howie knows going into the process each year, I have no money. Potential compensatory picks are more valuable to him at that point, and he's very cognizant of it. What he knows in a year like this, he's not getting one anyway. It's not that big of a deal.
Well, I was just saying that to understand the formula that you have to use to exactly know whether you are losing or not losing, or you're getting a match or not, is actually pretty darn difficult to understand. And I give a guy like Kempsky a lot of credit for understanding it, but then you're right. He sucks Eagle fans into evaluating every move that's made and what kind of effect it will have on the compensatory. What team has won a Super Bowl because they so well use their compensatory picks? I don't think there's any.
The irony is, most fans want, obviously their team to sign players, sign this guy, sign this guy,
which hurts.
Yes, which means you're not getting compensatory picks. So that's the irony of it all. But Martin's also right when he says, look, Jacksonville, I don't think Jacksonville has ever gotten a compensatory pick. Not once in their entire, because all they're doing is they're bad every year, with the exception of the 1 year with Doug Marrone. And they're always signed. They always have a lot of money. They're always signing people. They never get comp picks.
Top of the show, we did kind of get off on a Greg Ward tangent because I was a little surprised that the Eagles brought him back. I thought that Greg Ward's days as an Eagle receiver were numbered. But the two other moves we haven't even touched on yet. The Eagles did, as you correctly predicted, and others did as well, but you were right, John, when you said you thought that they would give the tender to Nate Herbig $2.4 million, which means now any other team could jump in and make a bid on him, but the Eagles would have the right to match. So I think you did this to Martin Frank. I'm going to turn around to you. You put on your Howie Roseman cap, McMullen. Another team offers Nate Herbig a 2-year contract, $6 million total, which is more than the 2.5 the Eagles are willing to pay this year, and $3 million of it guaranteed. So if you find out, he isn't near as good as you can't just cut him. You can, but you'd have to take a $3 million dead cap hit. If a team were to put that type of an offer out there to Nate Herbig, Eagles say, no, he's ours. Thank you very much for setting the parameters of his deal. We'll be matching it. Or do they say, good luck, Big Nate?
That's a good number, Jody. I'm going to give you credit for it. I would match that offer if I were Howie Roseman. Now, if you get to $4 million, maybe even $3.5 million, then I start to seriously think about it. Because, look, the Eagles know they've had so many injuries on the offensive line over the past really 2 seasons, how important it is to have depth at that particular position. But on the other hand, I mean, like, people forget Isaac Seumalo is coming back. You have Landon Dickerson, who's entrenched. Jason Kelsey's now back. Jack Driscoll's going to be back, and he's had some injury issues. I mean, it's unlikely. You still have Suo Peta, the Tesla stock. It's unlikely that Nate Herbig is going to play a lot this upcoming season. On the other hand, it was unlikely he was going to play a lot last season, and he did. And it was even more unlikely he's going to play a lot the season before, and he played a lot. So it would be a difficult decision. I think your number, I think I'd match. I'd feel comfortable with. And part of that is because, Jason might retire next year. And then Nate's more in the mix as a guy with interior versatility, both as a starter at guard and a backup at center. He wouldn't be a starting center. I don't want to go down that route. But so I think the uncertainty surrounding Jason Kelsey, the year-to-year nature of him at this point, creates a little bit more of a need to keep him. So I think the Eagles would do that. But if you start inching up, there's so much need. Matt Pryor, Jody. You see the number he got?
Yeah.
Nate Herbig's a better player than Matt Pryor. Now, Matt can play outside, so obviously tackles get a little bit more money than interior players. But if somebody's out there and somebody's desperate and they say, oh, Nate Herbig, he's played pretty well, it could be tough. It's one of those rare, usually when you tender a restricted free agent, you just turn out the light, go to bed, and sleep soundly. You're not worried about anybody coming swooping in. It's a little bit of a concern with Nate Herbig because he's played so much and people will recognize it.
That's why I asked you the hypothetical question I did to kind of put you on the spot there. And I'll readily admit this bothers me, and I should just accept it as the group think that is now the National Football League. John, who had a larger influence, or rank these three guys for me who had an influence on the Eagles winning and or losing games? Just they contributed more to winning and or losing this past season for the Eagles. Nate Herbig, Boston Scott, Alex Singleton. Put them in an order for me.
Alex Singleton 1, Nate Herbig 2, Boston Scott 3.
Yeah, see, I got Boston Scott ahead of Nate Herbig.
Boston didn't play a lot. I don't think people realize, Boston is sort of that sneaky guy. I always use I like the Sugar Ray Leonard analogy when in boxing, Sugar Ray sort of created that flurry at the end of the round and you steal the round, and that's all the judges remember. When Boston gets in there, he makes splash plays, and that's all the judges remember. But he doesn't play a lot. He's not. I mean, those guys were out on the field for significant periods. And even when Boston does play, and some of the injuries piled up with Miles and Jordan Howard, and he did play more significantly. It was for a short period of time. But when he's out there, he makes splash plays, and I think he's Sugar Ray Leonard's people. That's my comparison there. Those guys were significant. Alex, leading tackler on the team. Nate Herbig, because of all the injuries, essentially a starter at the end of the season. Full-time players, I guess, would be why I'm leaning it more in their direction.
Yeah, maybe I'm a sucker for splash plays, but last time I checked, the way that they're still evaluating who wins and loses in the National Football League is who scores the most points. Boston.
Well, it's hard to make a offensive lineman to make a splash play. I mean, you can Quentin Nelson somebody, and occasionally it'll go viral. A giant pancake like Jordan Mailata. I shouldn't even went. I should have kept it local.
Right. Can you please give me the website where I can go and watch the Quentin Nelson or Jordan Mailata like Nate Herbig
Well, that's
play?
what I'm saying.
I'd like to know where I can find that.
Well, you can find it. Offensive line people, they love Quentin Nelson. It's like
no, I'm talking about the Nate Herbig plays.
Oh. No, well, that's my point. I mean, I'm not comparing. I'm not saying Nate Herbig's the best guard in football or one of the best. I'm not comparing him as a player. I'm saying in nature, offensive linemen don't make splash plays except for the occasional pancake block of Quentin Nelson or Jordan Mailata. It's kind of hard for them to make sure. Trent Williams would be in that category as well. It's kind of hard for them to make offensive linemen to make splash plays. But guess what, Jody? They're stinking important. Boston Scott will tell you how important they are because if they're not blocking, if they're not pinning somebody, if they're not pinning and pulling correctly. So, I mean, the Eagles believe in building up front, spending money, as Martin said, offensive, defensive line. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to show up. It's not going to be splashy, but it's important. Your question to me was who was more important to winning. Yes. I think those guys are more important to winning than
scoring touchdowns. Very important to winning.
Oh, how do you score touchdowns?
And Boston Scott scored 7 of them.
How do you
7?
If you don't have blocking as a running back, how do you score touchdowns? Jordan Howard scored touchdowns. Miles Sanders didn't. That weird dichotomy. I mean, they take him out. He's not a goal line player, which, is more of an indictment of Miles Sanders than anything about Jordan Howard or Boston Scott. Somebody's got to score the touchdowns.
I will suggest that he was following other guys on the offensive line much more so than Nate Herbig.
Well, that part's fair. That's part fair.
Do me a favor, Mr. Pro Football Focus. Where does Nate Herbig rank?
Oh, Nate Herbig ranks very well, but I'll look it up.
Okay,
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I'm not overly concerned, but I think somebody, might wake up and say, let's push the Eagles and see if we can sign an offer sheet there, and try to get a guy who's, remember, he's not going to be a starter here because the Eagles do have such impressive depth. And they might take a flyer on him. But I'll look real quick. 30. Nate Herbig was 30 at the offensive guards in the NFL. So you think about it, there's 32 teams, Jody, 64 starting guards. Nate Herbig was number 30. And by the way, 30 of 82 in 2020, which I've said this before on the show, number 13 of 80 in the NFL.
Last year, or the 2020 season, Herbig was 13th?
Yeah.
So he went backwards badly this year is what you're telling me.
He went backwards, and he's not, but 30's not bad. 30 is
30's not bad out of 80. I'll give you that, but a guy who's going in the wrong direction. I just think they undersold Boston Scott. Is Jordan Howard retired?
If he does, it'll be late in the process.
As agreed. So the Eagles have how many backs under contract right now?
Yeah, but here's the deal, Jody. Here's the deal. The tender is 2.433 million. Okay. There are, and I'm gonna do it real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 30 running backs in the NFL that make more than 2.433 million. It's more about the position than anything else. You're not going to pay a third string running back. There's 32 teams, 32 starting running backs. You're not going to pay a third string running back. That's not Howie Roseman. That's not Jake Rosenberg. That's where the analytics of the salary cap come into play. They don't have to pay Boston Scott to. It's not an indication that they don't want him. In fact, I do think they want him back. I think he's another guy. They like him as a player, but they regard him as their third string running back, a very good third string running back. But they're not going to pay $2.433 million for a third string running back. That's what Boston Scott is about.
Fair enough. I will suggest that they should. And I would not be surprised if Boston Scott, when he gets to full free agency, which he will as of today, because the Eagles chose not to tender him, gets that kind of offer on the open market, even at a depressed position like running back. The salaries just continue to come back and back and back and are less and less and less at running back. I still think that somebody's going to see the value of Boston Scott at his age and his production. And yes, when I say production, it's more of an average than it is a total comp, because yes, the Eagles chose not to use him because Jordan Howard kind of came out of nowhere and had as good a season as he did. I think they could have been just as effective using Boston Scott. I think somebody's going to make a play for him. I think he's one of those free agents, and the only upside will be Jimmy Kempski. This one's for you, buddy. Eagles losing a free agent. Next year's compensatory draft may actually be improved because they lose Boston Scott and he goes somewhere else and joins another team. I just believe that Alex Singleton and Boston Scott, it came down to three guys. They had three guys that they could legitimately throw a tender on, Singleton, Scott, and Herbig, and they decided to put it on Herbig. I think that's just purely because of the way the National Football evaluates positions, not the individual players. I think Nate Herbig's a guy. He may be a big guy, but I think he's a guy. Boston Scott actually has a nose for the end zone, and Alex Singleton actually does have the ability to get 100 tackles. I think the other two have actually produced. And I know it's so hard to evaluate offensive linemen unless you're looking at coaching tape and the like, and you lean on Pro Football Focus, which they've got him as a pretty good ranking. I was just surprised that the one guy they decided to tender was a guy who I would rank third as having an impact on whether the Eagles did or didn't win games this year.
Well, that's the number real quick. I know we got to Derek Gunn. If he gets more than 2.433 million, and by the way, 4 o'clock, they still might sign Boston Scott before 4 o'clock. We still got time.
True. We'll put that one to our next guest. See how big a Boston Scott fan he is. I am. Raise my hand. We'll see if D Gunn as well. Derek Gunn, our very own from the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, is going to join us next here on Birds 365.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you. Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
He is John McMullen. I am Jody McDonald. We are the Mac and Mac guys. We are just some of the water carriers here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Not as big as our next guest, though. You know him forever from NBC Sports Philadelphia. He has been a key contributor here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel the last year and change. That Gun on One podcast is also pretty damn good. Derek Gunn joins us here on Birds 365. How are you, D Gunn?
Hey, guys. Good. How you guys doing today?
Doing well. Good to see you, D Gunn.
Likewise.
Let's start with the headline. I think a lot of people have talked about Deshaun Watson, and now that things have cleared up from a criminal perspective in his life, the interest has exploded. I think a lot of people were wondering, Derek, how many teams would line up. Well, everybody's lining up. I joked the Calgary Stampeders are lining up, the Birmingham Stallions, maybe the Philadelphia Stars, and they're giving out meetings left and right, but the Eagles can't seem to get a meeting with Deshaun Watson. Have the Eagles just said, all right, he doesn't want to play here, or are they lurking behind the scenes? What is your feel on this, Derek?
From everything I've gathered, they're still lurking behind the scenes. Basically, I guess Deshaun has not waived coming to Philadelphia yet. But the Eagles have spent the offseason doing their due diligence on Deshaun Watson. They even sent people down to Houston a few weeks ago to further check up on him, find out information about him. They came away with, hey, he's a great guy. Now they're sitting back like a lot of teams are and waiting to see what happens. But obviously, from everything that we've gathered nationally, Deshaun has already waived his ability on teams where he would like to go, where he would not want to go. I guess he's already met with the Saints. He's meeting with the Carolina Panthers. Now Cleveland has jumped in the mix all of a sudden. And I have not gotten confirmation that he has agreed to even talk to Philadelphia. That's not to say Philadelphia is out of the running right now. But I think they're not one of the front runners in this game as we sit here this moment.
And that's what I've been getting annoyed at the last couple of days here on the show, D Gunn. If he wants to go to the Saints because he's a Georgia guy and he likes the South better, and it's not that bad a ride from Atlanta to okay, fine, for the geographical thing. If Carolina is where he went to school, so the Panthers would hold some kind of grip. Okay, I get that. What makes Cleveland better than Philadelphia? If he's going to sit down with Cleveland, why the hell can't he sit down with Philadelphia?
Exactly. When I heard that, I'm like, wait a minute. Odell Beckham's gone. Jarvis Landry is gone. So two frontline wide receivers are no longer in the mix there. So what is the appeal for him to go to Cleveland? I have no idea at this point. And so the only people that really know that are his agent and himself. I don't know what connections he would have with the Cleveland Browns right now. I've been to Cleveland a number of times. Certainly Cleveland is not more appealing than the city of Philadelphia and this region in general. Obviously, when it comes to a winning tradition, a rabid fan base, a knowledgeable fan base, a passionate fan base, Cleveland is not going to outdo Philadelphia in that arena as well. So for the life of me, I can't understand why he would agree to meet with the Cleveland Browns, a team that has historically had over 30 starting quarterbacks since 1999. And it looks like, from what we're hearing, Baker Mayfield sent out a heartfelt thank you to the Cleveland Brown fan base yesterday, talking about, he doesn't know what the future holds for him. He can only control one facet of his life. So I don't know if they've already given him an indication that, hey, here's what we're doing. We're looking at somebody else. But I thought that was a little unusual for Baker to send that out at this particular time, when just a month ago, the front office said we fully intend for Baker Mayfield to come back here and be our starting quarterback in 2022. But as we all know, front offices, they're all cloak and dagger. They never tell you the full truth about anything they're going to do anyway.
Cleveland did bring in Amari Cooper, I will say that. And maybe there's some rock and roll Hall of Fame tickets, maybe a free pass there. That's about the only. But two things stood out to me there, D Gunn, when you were saying that. One was rabid fan base in Philadelphia, and you're right, it's more rabid. Maybe could that be a problem?
Dog Pound's pretty good though. Don't dismiss the Cleveland faithful.
No. Cleveland's a very good fan base. I'm not dismissing them one iota. That could be a problem also. You go back to the Michael Vick era, and there was a good contingent of fans who did not want Michael Vick to come to Philadelphia because of his past dealings and doings. But once Michael Vick got here and started winning games and playing like the electric Michael Vick that we knew he could play, all of a sudden, a number of those fans turned and became, fans of his. And I understand why a portion of the fan base here would not want Deshaun Watson here. And if you look at social media closely over the past week or so, you've seen a number of people talking about how they rather not have Deshaun Watson come here because of what he's going through right now. And even though the judge down in Houston decided not to pursue further lawsuit against Deshaun Watson, there's some people that feel he's still going to be suspended. And to what degree? How many games would he sit out? Would it be 2? Would it be 4, 6, 8? We don't know yet, because the league has not given us any indication whatsoever what the penalty may be. And so a lot of teams would have to take that into consideration. If we give up high draft picks for Deshaun Watson, he's out the first 6 or 8 games, and we start out like 2-6 or 1-7, and basically your season's over, fans are not going to be happy about that even whenever he comes back, because, the playoffs are a far-fetched notion at that point. So he's a great player. There's no question about that. can change the complexion of a game at any given moment. But again, I don't know why he's still stonewalling Philadelphia at this time, but is embracing Cleveland. I don't care if Amari Cooper is there or not. What have the Cleveland Browns won any more than the Philadelphia Eagles historically in the last decade or so? So I just don't understand that, And again, I go back to what I had said earlier. I don't know what his connection might be there with the Cleveland Browns, but obviously it's something that that seems to pique his interest more so than coming here right now.
Well, the second part, Derek, that you brought up that kind of rung true was your thoughts on Baker Mayfield. The Eagles have a unique luxury in the fact that, and I'll also give a lot of credit to Nick Saban because Miami went through this with Tua, who seemed to handle it very well from a mental standpoint. Whereas Cleveland goes and talks about a meeting and Baker's saying his goodbyes. Like he doesn't want to be part of it anymore. How big is that luxury to know Jalen Hurts is not going to be a shrinking violet? We said lurking in the background. If the Eagles don't get this done, they can be comfortable understanding that Jalen Hurts is mentally tough enough to just shrug it off and move forward. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would agree with that. You look at everything Jalen has gone through. You look at how many different teams he's played for. Look at how many offensive coordinators, quarterback coaches he's played for. He's talked openly about his coach. Dad was his worst critic or times. Jalen can handle any and everything. I think that was proven last year with all the rumors out there about the Eagles possibly bringing in a quarterback. And then they finally bring in a Gardner Minshew. And he never buckled. He went about his business. I think he has the consummate poker face and the poker demeanor to handle any and every situation. And, I said it on a number of platforms in the half of 2021 and this offseason that I fully expected, Jalen Hurts to be the Eagles starting quarterback in 2022. All the rumors out about the possibility of Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, we knew. I mean, let's be real about this. We knew Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers were not coming to Philadelphia. But based on what we saw from the Eagles in 2021, a team, yes, they got to the playoffs, but then again, they got exposed in the playoffs. We talked about this. We saw an Eagles team that compiled wins against inferior opponents, and then when they got to the playoffs, they got smashed by an elite team, and so the Eagles still have some growing. There's nothing wrong with that because the experience those young guys got from the playoff experience is invaluable for their development in the future. And, now this offseason, Howie Roseman will continue in free agency and the draft to add to that nucleus to make it stronger and that much better. But a Jalen Hurts, he's not going to flinch. He is who he is. He understands the nature of the business, and he's going to go about his business. If the job is his, so be it. If somebody comes in here and beats him out, which I don't think is going to happen in 2022, then he'll handle it like a professional and move on.
Hi, D-Gun. J-Mac and I were talking about this right before you came on. If Boston Scott ends up elsewhere, which unfortunately I think if they don't put the tender out there, if I were Boston Scott, I'd be a little ticked off. And I'd be looking to take my wares elsewhere. If the Eagles make the best offer, then he'll be back here. But we don't know that that's the case. Will the Eagle fans in season be saying, damn, we could use Boston Scott down by the goal line? 7 touchdowns last year for Boston Scott. Only guy in the team who had more touchdowns than him was the quarterback, Jalen Hurts. Or will people be going, Boston who? Because the Eagles will just fill the void and get another running back and move on from Boston Scott, and he'll long be since forgotten. Which do you think is more likely?
Well, right now we're looking at Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell on the roster, and neither one of those guys are what you would consider your plow horse to get those tough 2 and 3 yards. So I fully expect Howie Roseman to either find himself a mid-level veteran during free agency. He's not going to pay top dollars for another running back to come in here, to find a lower level or mid-level veteran to come in here, or he's going to draft another running back, and I would assume he's going to try to draft a bigger running back to fit that bill. To answer your question directly, that remains to be seen until we get closer to the regular season and find out exactly what the Eagles have in their arsenal in terms of running back stable. whether it's an unproven commodity by way of the draft, or if they go out and find a younger version of, Jordan Howard, or they might even bring Jordan Howard back again. Who knows? So I can't thoroughly answer that question at this stage as we sit here March 16th, because there's still a lot of wheeling and dealing, as we've seen before free agency officially began. Look at all the moves that have been made already out there. So now the free agency is in full swing. Howie Roseman knows what he needs. They know, the team as a whole know what they need to fill. And, and I've said it time and time again, I've always thought Howie Roseman did a better job of bringing in free agencies, a more consistent, better job of bringing in free agencies more so than drafting. Although his draft in 2021 was a pretty good draft, but Howie Roseman knows how to plug and play when it comes to bringing in veterans. So again, I fully expect him to bring in a veteran running back in here. Hopefully it's somebody similar to a Jordan Howard, and he may even, pull the trigger and draft one in the middle rounds come late April.
D Gunn, you mentioned it's March 16th, but you know how people are. We have free agency doesn't even start till 4:00 today, but the names are out there. The Eagles made somewhat of a splash on the edge with bringing Hassan Reddick back home, South Jersey kid, Temple product. All good vibes there.
Right.
No safety. They're coming off the board. Left and right, the big names. No wide receiver. The Eagles tried to trade for Calvin Ridley. Little bit of a surprise they haven't attempted to make more of a splash at those two particular positions.
Well, I tweeted the other day that once they got Hassan Riddick, don't be surprised if wide receiver is their next priority. And all of a sudden, as we've seen, some of the wide receivers I thought they would go after have already come off the board. And to me, that tells me that they basically were outbid. What are the Eagles willing to pay for a wide receiver compared to what some of these other teams that had a lot more cap space are willing to pay?
Christian Kirk,
So, would you pay Christian Kirk that kind of money? He's a good receiver, but I don't consider him a so-called elite receiver. But he got elite receiver money. Eagles are not going to pay that. Howie's too wise for that. The Eagles have too many needs across the board, to put that kind of money into one wide receiver. I do think they need a veteran wide receiver. I don't want to see Howie use another high draft pick to draft a wide receiver. And there's still a few names out there that could possibly come in and fit the bill. But right now, it hasn't happened. But the Eagles are looking at the wide receiver board in terms of free agency. That I can tell you. They are looking at the wide receiver board, and I wouldn't be surprised if they bring in a veteran wide receiver to try to complement, Devontae Smith.
But is anybody going to be wowed by anybody that's left at this stage?
No.
Other than Allen Robinson. He's the one guy who would probably get some wows because he's been as good as he has, but is also going to be pretty damn costly. Are people going to go, whoa, this is the guy we're bringing in as our veteran wide receiver?
Right. No, you're right. No, you're right. A lot of people are going to go, huh? And I understand why. Eagles fans, they want to see the product improve. And we all know the Eagles need another wide receiver, a proven wide receiver out there. And the fact that, let's face it, when it comes to free agency, when you look at Howie historically, when Howie has wanted something bad enough, he has gotten it by way of free agency. And it tells me that the Eagles are being dollar-wise in terms of how they're going to spend their money this offseason as they continue to try to build this thing. And some of the numbers out there that receivers have got, even the middle-tier receivers, make you go back and say, huh? Are you serious? They got this kind of money? And I'm sure the Eagles organization is thinking the same thing. So it may not be a wow factor in terms of who they bring in, but I fully expect them to bring in a wide receiver. And with Allen Robinson still being out there, I think the more teams that are interested in him, obviously the numbers are going to go up. And the Eagles have to decide, is Allen Robinson that wow factor that could put us over the top in our receiving game? He's a great receiver. Unfortunately, he was stuck in a situation in Chicago where, you have a quarterback situation that didn't get to fully utilize all of his talents. But we've seen him have some games, upper tier type games that let you know that, man, this kid can play. If he's given the right quarterback, he can play. It comes down to now what the Eagles and other organizations want to spend in terms of bringing an Allen Robinson in there.
All right. This is a philosophical question for you, D Gunn.
Philosophical, okay.
From a roster building standpoint, we hear this all the time. You have a short window if you hit on the quarterback on his rookie deal.
Right.
Jalen Hurts right now scheduled to make $1.6 million at the quarterback position. He is your starter. That means you have more financial assets to build other parts of the roster. We look out to Los Angeles, a little bit different because Justin Herbert is a top 10 level pick, makes more money, but still cost effective from the quarterback position. You're not paying $35-40 million. The Chargers go out there, they overpay Khalil Mack, they trade for him, they overpay for J.C. Jackson. They're building up around Justin Herbert. The Eagles, when they give their votes of confidence to Jalen Hurts, what do they say, D Gun? They say, we got to build up around Jalen Hurts. Isn't this the time to overspend? I get what you're saying about Howie Roseman discipline, and you don't want to overpay for Kristen Kirk. I agree with that. But on the other hand, isn't this the time you should be overpaying? You have that short window with a cost-effective quarterback. Your thoughts just on the philosophical roster building of that?
No, I agree with you. And we've known historically how he has overpaid in some cases for free agents. But in 2022, I'm not behind closed doors with him. I don't know what the mindset is. And I know fans are anxious. You see all the bodies that have been moving back and forth so far. I know fans are anxious. I'm sitting there anxiously waiting to find out exactly what this team is going to do next. I agree with you. Now's the time. The team was a little bit better off than we thought it would be as we watched them, wade through the waters of 21. We saw them with a little promise, and we still understand they need a safety. They need a cornerback. They need a little bit more depth at the offensive line. They still need a little bit more improvement at the linebacking situation. Maybe another edge rusher. We fully expect Brandon Graham to come back healthy in 2022, but let's face it, at 33, coming off a serious injury like that, as we all know, sometimes you don't regain that burst that you had, when you're 25, 26. It takes a little bit longer to heal up, and you wonder to what degree. Now, nobody's going to outwork Brandon Graham in terms of getting back to what he hopes will be that top-notch level, but we don't know. They still need, some help in the edge rush. I like a Josh Sweat, but you can never have enough edge rushers. And because Jonathan Gannon doesn't like to blitz a lot, obviously he's going to have to rely on his 4 men up front to get home. So I don't know exactly what they're thinking behind closed doors. They got a Hassan Reddick in here. That takes care of the edge rushing. The man has 23 and a half sacks in the last 2 seasons, and you can either play him at the Sam or you can play him down, put his hand in the dirt and let him come off the edge there. But they still need depth at positions as well. So I don't know exactly what the game plan is, what the mindset is for this organization in terms of filling out its roster by way of combination of free agency / the upcoming draft.
D-Gun, one of the things I always highly respected about you was your ability to get a feel on the room, that you understood the personas in the Eagle locker room and how they fit and how they affected each other, as well as any other reporter in town. A little bit tough these last few years with COVID keeping all of you guys somewhat restricted, but I always thought you were great at that. John was talking earlier about Greg Ward coming back. I was kind of surprised that the Eagles did sign him, but John said, no, he's a good guy. They like him in the room, that he's got a good relationship with the other wide receivers. So Greg Ward's staying, but the 14 other Eagle free agents, none have signed elsewhere, by the way. Sorry, Jimmy Kempsky again. I keep apologizing, Jimmy Kempsky. The Eagles keep losing out on compensatory picks on any given snapshot moment that you look at. No one has signed any Eagle free agents just yet. Are there any guys on that free agency list that you go, all right, here's what you're going to have to make up on the field, but off the field, yeah, that might be a little bit of a hit to the locker room as well. Any guys on the Eagles free agent list this year that could be elsewhere that the Eagles would lose in the locker room with?
Wow. I think it depends on what teams are looking for. If you look at the Eagles list, they're not like a top tier of type free agents.
Very true.
They're guys who are role fillers. And so those guys are not priorities right now. And I fully believe that the Eagles will get a few of them back. But it's also sit back, wait and see what offers you get out there. You know what? It's funny you asked me, Jody, that question, and I can't think of one that comes to mind where I just jump up and say, we got to have him back. You know, we got to have this guy back. We got to have that guy back.
Like when Malcolm left a couple of years ago, everyone knew.
Rodney from a leadership standpoint, right?
Yeah, but you know what, John? I don't disagree with you, but also I don't believe, and I hate to say this because I love Rodney McLeod. I don't think he was a player in 2021 that.
No, I agree with that.
You know, coming off that knee injury, again, here's a player that's getting a little bit older. I don't think he ever fully recovered from that. So again, you could get younger and cheaper at the safety spot. You know, I hate to say that. In free agency, when the dust settles after the first few days, you sit back and you wait and see what's still on the board, and you can still get a decent safety to come in here. You know, and I'm never going to knock a Rodney McLeod for what he has done as a professional, as a leader in that locker room, as a man of community. He puts his heart and soul into the Philadelphia community. But let's face it, you know, things change. It's a business of change. And, you know, I think we sit here and agree. Rodney McLeod that we saw in 2021 was not the same guy we were accustomed to in 2019, 2020. And it's understandable when you have a significant injury like that. So, you know, I can't even say, that's why I said I left it open, and I'm glad Jody asked that question. And as the names filter through my mind, I'm thinking there's not one that comes to mind where I say I have to have, you know, at this particular time. Moving in another direction doesn't necessarily mean they're going to automatically be better, but it does help them free up some other money in case they want to do something later in free agency.
And just to give Howie some credit, the guys that would have been wanted, he got done early. So Dallas Goedert was scheduled to be a free agent, Jordan Mailata, Josh Sweat, Avonte Maddox. So he identified those guys early, got them locked up.
Right.
And yeah, you could look at the Eagles are not going to lose sleep. You know, you'd like to have Rodney back from a leadership perspective, but you're right, D-Gun. Sure. I mean, he's a descending player on the field. So you're not going to lose sleep. So we got to give Howie credit at certain things, and we'll criticize him where he deserves criticism. One guy, you know, I look at Hassan Reddick, and this will my last one for you, D-Gun. Perfect fit for what Jonathan Gannon wants. Howie says we're an extension of the coaching staff. Well, you got Jonathan Gannon says he wants the Sam linebacker, edge rusher, pass rusher. He's got it.
Right.
One guy you talked about a lot last year from his time in Minnesota was Harrison Smith. Harrison Smith. Very, very versatile safety. Plays all over the place. Malcolm Jenkins, like up, down, all over. There's one guy out there, but he's not a typical Eagles signing because he's a little bit older. He's going to be 30. He's played a lot of football. Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger. That's the type of player Jonathan Gannon wants. That would be out of character for the Eagles. Would they consider something like that to make the defensive coordinator happy?
Absolutely. But it comes down to one thing, the almighty dollar. How many other teams are also interested in Tyrann Mathieu compared to what the Eagles are willing to pay? And then you have to look at his injury history over the last couple of years. As phenomenal of a talent as he is, great ball hawk, sure tackler, you know, he's had a number of injuries over the last couple of years. How much are you willing to invest in a guy who may miss 3, 4, 5 games, you know, for you? Might not be there at the end when you need him. You don't know. But I think a Tyrann Mathieu would be a significant addition to the back end of that defense, a stabilizing factor, a leader. And I think the Eagles would be in their best interest to pursue him to the fullest. But at some point, I'm sure they're going to have to pump the brakes and say, okay, this is outlandish. This is not what we want to pay for as safety. So we're going to have to rely maybe on the draft to get us our safety, you know, of the future. Or, again, wait until the feeding frenzy of free agency settles. Let's see what's on the board, and let's see what we can get in here to hold down the back end of the defense, as well as add our safety of the future who can tutor under a veteran that we bring in here to be the temporary starter.
All right, last one for me, D. Gunn. And again, I've always appreciated the fact that you brought knowledge of guys, not only what they could do on the field, but personality as well.
Yeah.
This upcoming year, the Philadelphia Eagles twice will face off against
Carson Wentz.
Coming back to the NFC East, and the Washington Commanders. Should Eagles have healthy respect for what they're going to get from Carson Wentz when they face off against them? Or should they be smiling because Carson has shown his true colors and just ain't the quarterback he used to be in 2017? So Eagles will be favored in both of those games next year. Which way do you look at it?
I tell you what, when the story started coming out about Carson after the 2020 season about not being the consummate locker room guy and the leader that you thought it would be, you thought it was because, maybe inner sour grapes and how the relationship had disintegrated between him and Doug Peterson in the front office. And then all of a sudden, just not too long ago, another story surfaces in Indianapolis about Carson Wentz. Now, a teammate, being a me guy instead of a we guy. And you have to say, okay, two different markets in a span of a year. So there has to be some truth to that. So now the Indianapolis Colts, who gave up a first-round pick, and Frank Reich, who basically made Carson what he was in 2017, have given up on Carson Wentz and sent him packing again to the Washington Commanders. Now, has Carson learned his lesson? I'm assuming there's a good deal of truth behind these stories that have come out about him. Carson is going to have to take a good long look at himself in the mirror and decide what he wants to be as a professional athlete and as a teammate. Carson Wentz basically cost the Colts a playoff spot in 2021 with his play down the stretch, especially the last couple of games. All they had to do was win one game, one of those two games, and they were in the playoffs. And I'm looking at Carson Wentz the way he played. I'm like, what in the world is going on? And if he disintegrated in front of Frank Reich, is it Carson who is slowly declining, or what is it? And so we're going to find out, because now he's going to play for Ron Rivera. I know it's nonsense coach like Ron Rivera, and it depends on what Rivera gets him in terms of pass catchers to go along with the Terry McLaurin. That will help define. Washington's defense is not bad. They just lost Brandon Scherf, who was one of their Pro Bowl offensive linemen. So now they've got a hole in the picket fence, so to speak, up front. How are they going to fill that void? So I would say right now, when you look at the two teams stacked up, if I'm the Eagles, I'm thinking I can't wait to see Carson Wentz. And I guarantee you there are a few guys in that Eagles locker room that are looking forward to getting a couple of shots on Carson a couple of times this season.
I will say Fletcher likes Carson a lot, which,
well, they have a common bond. They love to hunt, and fish and stuff like this. So they have a common bond. Yeah.
He might take it easy. I'm not sure about everybody else.
You're telling me Fletcher won't fall on top of him. Okay. Yeah. As long as you get him to the ground, Fletcher.
And Fletcher's got to be here.
Right.
Trade. We didn't get the potential trade, but we'll get to that another day. D Gunn at Real D Gunn. Right here, JAKIB Media everywhere. Gun on One podcast, one of the best in the business. Wisconsin's own. And now you claim Delaware. We had Martin Frank on earlier. Big Delaware day for us.
Hey, we're just good old country folk down here.
Which means he'll be out grilling later on in this afternoon. D-Gun, always a pleasure, buddy. Thanks much. We'll hit you back up in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, guys. You guys have a great day.
Derek Gunn, JAKIB Media's own Eagles post-game show. You can catch him here on the channel all the time. We are glad he jumped on with us today here on Birch 365. All right. Got to take our final time out, but then when we come back, we will officially put a bow on the show.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Appreciate everybody streaming on in on this Wednesday edition of Birds 365, which, by the way, was show 232, and we only have 181 days to the first Sunday of the upcoming season.
Hey, Jody, real quick. Interesting. Yeah. The NFL meetings are coming up, the spring meetings, and the competition committee meets, and they have rule proposal, potential changes. Overtime would be the biggest one. The Eagles made an interesting proposal when it comes to secondary football executive positions because they just lost Brandon Brown. They lost Ian Cunningham. So they want to change the rule to allow the employer club the choice to retain the executive through the draft. So that gives me a clear indication that they're not happy about losing those guys before the draft. I told you about that calendar. It's a little bit different for personnel scouting than it is for coaches and players. It's draft to draft. And the Eagles want to put that on the books so they're not losing key executives before the draft. That's pretty interesting. Maybe a little bit in the weeds, but
by the way, I've been asking you about. I probably haven't done so in about a week or so, but the Eagles have signed nobody. They lost 2 key executives, and you continue to point, well, but they're 20 deep to begin with, Jody, as compared to the Bengals, who have all of 4 guys in their entire scouting department, and they went to the Super Bowl, but an opening's an opening, and the Eagles haven't filled those 2 spots just yet. Apparently, you're right. They sound like they're not happy that they have to fill those 2 spots and want to change NFL rules about it. All right, that's something we get into tomorrow. We're going to do something I don't think we've ever done here on Birds 365. I'm going to ask John a question about a future show's guest on the air. We don't do this on the air. We usually do it off the air as soon as the show is over. Do you want to get BLG tomorrow, Brandon Lee Gouton?
Sure. I love BLG.
Okay. We both like BLG a lot. Joe Santoliquito is going to join us tomorrow, correct?
Yeah. 8:20.
So we got Joe early. Here's why I want to get BLG on early. Do you have Bleeding Green Nation up on your computer? Or can you?
I don't.
Quickly
but I
put up BLG. As a matter of fact, their lead story is about the Eagles and proposing changes for the league. That they're one of the teams that wants to see a change in overtime. But I'm going to direct your attention to something else on BLG's website. Bleeding Green Nation. You got it up there yet?
Yeah, I got it up.
Okay. How about that picture of Nate Herbig? Why would you do that? And I'm questioning whether the Eagles should have given him the tender or not. I would have rather tender Boston Scott than Nate Herbig. Why would you put that picture of Nate Herbig up there?
My guess is, well, I'm clicking on. It's Getty Images. My guess is, remember, I talked about the offensive linemen. They don't get a lot of respect. So, you have to subscribe to these photograph services, Getty, USA Today, we use on Sports Illustrated. Sometimes they don't have a lot of pictures of offensive linemen.
That's it. That has to be the one picture. There can't be another picture.
Yeah.
If you've got a choice of one of two, and that's one of them, you're taking the other picture. That's got to be it.
Yeah.
But you're telling me Nate Herbig has got these viral videos. You could go find one. No, you can't. You can't even find a picture of Nate Herbig, let alone a viral video of him making a dominating play this past year.
This is why you go up. You go to camps and OTAs and you get what we call stock photos. You get as many as the lesser play. Everybody's got the stars, right? So you don't worry about that. So you try to get as many as possible. In that case, I would go to my phone and I would go to a different Nate Herbig picture that I have gotten personally.
You should have lent it to him. You should have called him and go, Brandon,
I
can text you one that's better than that one you got.
Yeah, if he would have called, I would have.
You would have taken care of him. So it's always good to talk to BLG because he's great. And oh, by the way, I want to get him on tomorrow so I can pimp him about that picture. How do you do that to the guy? I'm cutting him down because I don't think he's worth the tender, but at least I didn't put that picture of him up. Man, that's just harsh, BLG.
Poor Herbie the love bug.
Maybe we'll try and get BLG up tomorrow. We're definitely going to have Joe Santoliquito. I'm going to be back here in 22 hours. How about you, McMullen?
I'm going to do it. Let's do it, Jody.
Right back here on Birds, 365 and 2 and 2.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home.